Good evening and thank you for joining us. After more than 6 weeks and close to 15,000 deaths on both sides, Israel and Hamas have reached a 4-day truce for hostage release deal. It marks the biggest diplomatic breakthrough since Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel that killed 1,200 people and ignited a war that has devastated vast areas of Gaza. Qatar, which brokered the deal, said 50 of the more than 200 hostages taken by Hamas will be freed, while Israel will release 150 Palestinian prisoners. U.S. President Joe Biden has welcomed the agreement, which also allows more humanitarian aid into Gaza and is expected to go into effect on Thursday. Nasir Karim with more.
For 73-year-old Camelia Hote Ishe, the truce and release of hostages is merely background chatter. What she wants to see is her 13-year-old kidnapped granddaughter, Gali Tarachansky, in the flesh. I don't rely on them so that I don't develop a hope that I then lose, she said. I just want the phone call from my daughter saying Gali is coming back. In the occupied West Bank, a more hopeful Abu Maria family, with 38-year-old Fida, mother of teenager Ubay, looking forward to possibly reuniting with their son. Ubay has been in an Israeli jail since August. Their wishes may come true soon. The Qatar government, Israel and Hamas announced on Wednesday a 4-day humanitarian pause in fighting that would see the release of 50 women and children held by Hamas and 150 Palestinian prisoners freed by Israel. Hamas officials matched Netanyahu for posturing, issuing a statement saying their fingers remain on the trigger. U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed the deal, in which a 3-year-old girl whose parents died during the Hamas attack on October 7th is likely to be one of 3 Americans released. I will not stop until they're all released, Biden said in a statement. With aid trucks ready to enter Gaza by the Rafah crossing from Egypt and provide relief for 2.3 million people, reports say the 24-hour waiting period is to allow time for Israeli citizens to ask the country's Supreme Court to block the release of Palestinian prisoners. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
The fighting appears just as fierce in the lead-up to the humanitarian pause. Hospitals continue to come under attack, refugee camps have been in the firing line, and Lebanese journalists have been killed. David Garrett reports.
Busloads of sick and injured moved from the fighting. Short daily humanitarian pauses were designed to help Palestinians escape. Now there is hope of further respite. It cannot come soon enough for these battle-hardened patients. The Indonesia hospital in northern Gaza is under bombardment and evacuation was ordered. The World Health Organization says it is appalled by the Israeli attack. The WHO has recorded 335 attacks on healthcare institutions in the occupied territory since the 7th of October. These desperate people came to Khan Yunis and a safer hospital. Similar assaults continue on Gaza's largest medical facility, Al-Shifa. Doctors are trying to keep it running as best they can. Israel claims a Hamas command centre was located there and released photos of underground tunnels at the site. Doctors working for the Hamas-run health ministry say they know nothing.
Again, that you see in a war area with a lot of tanks, a lot of troops all over the time. What's happening now that they are totally very, very aggressive with the medical staff here, and they keep pushing us hardly and arresting us, each one of us, for a few hours, keep asking about details of the military groups and the tunnels and the operation center, all this stuff. And they insist that we should know all these things.
3 hospitals in Gaza's north are no longer functioning properly. Some sick and injured cannot be saved. Fears the conflict would spill out from Gaza and trigger a wider regional war have not materialised. However, skirmishes between the Israeli Defence Forces and Hezbollah on the Israel-Lebanon border occur on an almost daily basis. 2 journalists from a Beirut-based TV station were killed. A reporter, Farah Omar, a cameraman and civilian died when Israel targeted a weapons site.
Nothing was there. There were no rockets, there were no army, there was no Hezbollah, there were no resistance. Farah was sitting there under a tree on a plastic chair all by herself with Ramia Mamari, and they were shot.
The deaths have caused anger in Lebanon. The Prime Minister says it proves there is no limit to Israel's crimes. Israeli airstrikes hit densely populated refugee camps in central Gaza. Rescue teams searched through the rubble for survivors. At least 30 are said to have been killed, with as many again reported missing. David Garrett, TVB News.
President Xi Jinping, Russian President Vladimir Putin and other leaders from the BRICS bloc of the countries attended a virtual meeting on the Israel-Hamas war hosted by South Africa on Tuesday. They stressed the need for a ceasefire and the protection of civilians. Meanwhile, the South African parliament voted in favor of a motion that shut down the Israeli embassy in Pretoria and suspend all diplomatic relations with Israel until it agrees to a ceasefire in Gaza. Daniel Rao reports.
The virtual talks, organised by current BRICS chair South Africa, were the first between the group's leaders since the latest Israel-Hamas war broke out on October 7th. Opening the dialogue, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa accused Israel of war crimes and acts tantamount to genocide, while calling on both sides to exercise restraint.
The collective punishment of Palestinian civilians through the unlawful use of force by Israel is a war crime. The deliberate denial of medicine, fuel, food and water to the residents of Gaza is tantamount to genocide. As South Africa, we call for, first, an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire. Second, the opening of humanitarian corridors so that aid and other basic services such as food and medicines can reach those in need. Third, all countries to exercise restraint.
Making his comments before Israel and Hamas agreed to a 4-day pause in fighting on Wednesday, President Xi Jinping urged for an immediate ceasefire and an end to all attacks against civilians, as well as the release of civilian detainees. Xi said it is also important to ensure the safe passage of humanitarian relief to Gaza. He added the root cause of the Palestinian-Israeli situation is the fact that the right of the Palestinian people to statehood has long been ignored. Xi stated the only viable way to break the cycle of conflict lies in the two-state solution. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the crisis is a direct consequence of the US desire to monopolize mediation functions in the Palestinian-Israeli settlement.
Guangdong province is planning to introduce a unified identification system for Guangdong, Hong Kong and Macau residents that requires linking up with the Hong Kong government's I Am Smart app. Some lawmakers think the app is behind the times, saying it also reflects the fact that local government departments lack cooperation. Shen Tang tells us more.
So often, residents from Hong Kong, Macau and Guangdong are stuck at the part with identification when dealing with cross-boundary governmental or bank affairs. The mainland organizations may even reject their identification, even if residents personally carry their work or address proof. Guangdong province has announced a Digital Bay Area 3-year action plan to push ahead with a unified identification system for residents from the 3 places. That includes connecting the Guangdong Government Services platform with Hong Kong's I Am Smart and Macau's One Account app, which suggests that residents from Hong Kong and Macau could handle some mainland processes, such as renewing licenses, via their respective mobile app. The mobile app being used in Guangdong can handle provincial government services. Users can use facial recognition to complete the process. Meanwhile, most functions in Hong Kong's I Am Smart app usually divert users to a departmental website. Some functions require prior in-person verification. This resident said she used I Am Smart to apply for her children's admission to primary school, but she must still sign registration forms in person at a government office. The I Am Smart app, which costs the government $60 million to develop, was only introduced in 2020. Earlier this year, authorities earmarked an extra $200 million to upgrade the platform. Lawmaker Kingsley Wong said the app's user experience must be improved immediately. He said after filling in a new address and reporting it to the Immigration Department, that information should be updated across all governmental departments. Earlier, the government set a target of 2025 for all its digital procedures to be handled by I Am Smart app. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Secretary for Security Chris Tang said telecommunications service providers have intercepted over 1.4 million suspicious incoming calls prefixed +852 since March this year. He said the calls possibly involved scams. In a written reply to the Legislative Council, the security chief said the telecommunications service providers have started sending voice or text alerts for users regarding overseas incoming calls prefixed +852, which often involved scams. About 18 million alerts have been delivered since September. Welcome back. A group of taxi drivers cancelled a strike earmarked for today intended to express their disapproval of the government's lack of action on tackling illegal ride-hailing services. Mimosa Ngai reports.
Around 500 taxi drivers had earlier planned to go on a 3-hour strike today to complain about the government's lack of action to combat illegal ride-hailing services in the city. However, the strike was cancelled on Tuesday evening after industry representatives held a call with relevant authorities and were satisfied with their response. Moreover, the drivers have been denied permission to use the planned venue for the strike. Chairman of the city's Taxi and Public Light Bus Association, Cao Kuo-kern, said the purpose of the strike is to deliver a message to the government, do more to combat illegal car-hailing services. There are about 80,000 taxis in Hong Kong and 40,000 drivers, with the average driver's age being 60 years old. This driver said the industry faces another greater problem. Many have left the sector for other more profitable jobs. Speaking about the effectiveness of the strike against illegal car hires, the driver believed the impact would have been minimal. Lawmaker Ben Chen, meanwhile, said a third reading of the Taxi Driver Offence Points Bill will soon be carried out at the Legislative Council. He believes the bill will enhance deterrent effects and expects it to be passed by the end of this year. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
The Hong Kong Housing Society will put up for sale more than 400 subsidized flats in Kwun Tong. The average cost of the residential units in the Anderson Road quarry site area is $8,900 per square foot. The flats will be open for applications by eligible persons between next Thursday and the 13th of December. Hamma Amber is the Housing Society's first subsidized sale flats project in 6 years. Located on An Hay Street in the Anderson Road quarry site area, the project will provide 422 units, with a saleable area ranging from 303 to 658 square feet. Some 80% of them contain 2 bedrooms. The selling prices are set at around 62% of the market value. The least expensive unit has a price tag of around $2.5 million. The government is planning to use $180 million to conduct research on land reclamation for housing and advanced industries development in Lung Kwu 10 and the River Trade Terminal in Tuen Mun. The Legislative Council's Public Works Subcommittee approved the requests. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The government's plan to develop parts of Tuen Mun include the reclamation of 145 hectares of land in Lung Kwu 10 to develop advanced industries. The government also wants to reclaim 143 hectares of land at the River Trade Terminal for housing development. But several lawmakers at LegCo's Public Works Subcommittee meeting were skeptical about the viability of the scheme. Lawmaker Chairman Kong noted it is more suitable to develop industries instead of residences in the area, owing to the location's already existing power stations, cement and steel plants. Lawmaker Michael Tian said he is concerned about whether Lung Kwu 10 Road will be able to sustain the increased traffic flow after the land reclamation. This, as Permanent Secretary for Development for Planning and Land Stores Ho, said there are no strict objectives for how many residential units will be built. She added consultants will be hired to look into the possibility of building a tunnel for traffic in Lung Kwu 10. Meanwhile, other issues discussed in the meeting include the construction of sitting-out areas at Kai Tak River and Kai Tak Station Square. Some lawmakers stressed the importance of safety for the area's pathway shared by pedestrians and cyclists. The government said the design of the pathway will follow international standards and stand at a width of 6 to 10 meters. Regarding complaints of a bad smell from the Katak River, authorities noted they will look into removing precipitants in the sewage system. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A stampede at a military stadium has left at least 37 people dead in the Republic of Congo after large crowds of young people responded to a recruitment appeal. The Congolese Armed Forces Command later announced all recruitment operations have been suspended in the capital Brazzaville until further notice following the tragedy. Public Prosecutor Oko Ngakala said an investigation would be launched and questions why the event was still going on at midnight. Long lines have been formed outside recruitment centers each day over the past week as young people have sought to join the army. One of the few institutions offering work in the Republic of Congo. As many as 700 people a day have registered, though there are only a total of 1,500 places available. In the Republic of Congo, youth unemployment is about 42%, according to World Bank statistics, and poverty is widespread. South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol addressed UK members of Parliament on Tuesday during a state visit aimed at strengthening trade and defense ties between the two countries. Yoon is scheduled to hold talks with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak today, which will be focused on trade, technology and defense. Earlier, Yoon was greeted by Britain's King Charles III, Queen Camilla, heir to the UK throne, Prince William, and the military honor guard at Horse Guard Parade, a military parade ground in central London. King Charles and Queen Camilla greeted Yoon and First Lady Kim Kun-hee, alongside heir to the UK throne, Prince William, and government ministers. In his speech to UK MPs, Yoon said this year marks the 140th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties, adding that it will be an important and meaningful year for partnership between the two countries. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.